All right, we're back here at the DIY greenhouse build. It's going pretty well. You can see it's a construction site. I want to take you guys through the 5 things I would do differently, or maybe 5 mistakes I made, at least the top ones. There's been more than 5, so that you can make your greenhouse build even better and you don't make the same mistakes I did. So we're going to start with one that you can't see, but we'll go from bottom up. Is the foundation. I love this foundation. It was pretty simple. It was a lot of work, but it was simple. But what I would do differently is I put rebar in, about 2-foot rebar in cavities of the cinder blocks. I made sure I put at least 2 in each corner. I made sure I put, I believe 2 beside where the door frame will be, because I thought there could be long-term weakness there. And then I put rebar in the middle, at least a couple pieces in the middle of each side. What I would have done differently is put at least 1 piece of rebar in a cavity of every block. It wouldn't have been that much more rebar. Cost wouldn't have been that much more. It's super easy to hammer a piece of rebar down through the dirt before you put your concrete in. So I would have done that differently. The next thing, as we work our way up, is this spacing I'm dealing with. So if you're building a DIY greenhouse out of old windows, you're kind of constrained to the size of your windows. So you'll see on this front wall, I did a really nice job of the only kind of weird spacing I have to fill in is above the header of the door. You can see here, this is just continuous. And then where I did have some gaps, what I did is I just put extra studs in here to fill that space. So it worked out pretty sweet. But just based on the size of the windows and whatnot, you can see I have this top spacing up here, and then this awkward spacing here. So what I would have done differently, knowing what I know now, I was trying to optimize for windows and light and thought, let's get as much windows, as much light coming in. Well, at a certain point, especially down low in a greenhouse, because you're gonna have benches and other things that'll cause some shading, down low is not nearly as important. So I would have pushed these gaps all the way to the bottom, and then I would have filled it with plywood or siding or something. I would have pushed these gaps right here to the corners and done the same thing. It would have saved me so much time and money now, because as you can see, I'm filling these in with plexiglass. I love how they look, don't get me wrong, but it's been an ordeal, and this mistake is multifaceted. So you can see right here, what I was originally trying to do is I have extra window sashes. I was removing these panes, which, pun intended, is a huge pain. It is very hard to remove those without cracking them, but I was removing them. Then I was building these small frames because, as you can see, the window panes aren't very big. So to fill any of these gaps, it would take at least 3, maybe 4 of these panes. Then on this one, classic, I don't know if you can see this crack, I get it installed like the 3rd to last trim nail cracks the thing. So all that work of removing, building this frame, doing all this work. I have to cut the glass too. I have to cut it to size, which was cool that I learned how to do that, but it's not easy. That was a mistake. And if I would have just pushed that gap to the bottom and pushed that gap to the corner, pushed these gaps to the bottom, filled them with wood, I'd probably be done as far as like having this closed in, and I saved all the cost of, I switched over to plexiglass because it's so much faster, but it's kind of pricey. So that would be, I would say, let's see, foundation, then those gaps. Then I think the 3rd biggest mistake is thinking I could efficiently repurpose some of these window panes. You can do it, but it is very time consuming and very difficult. And then the 4th and 5th mistake or thing I would do differently is, this is right up there with bonehead mistake, but when I was doing my roofing, because this roofing material is so lightweight, I was getting very nervous as you read up on it about wind getting a hold of it. And so I did my overlapping space in the front. I feel like I did a good job. And when I got to the side, for some reason, I was worried about the wind getting a hold of it. I don't know if you can see this. Let's come over here. I'm not in the sun. You can see I didn't want to leave an overhang because I was worried about the wind getting a hold of it. Well, that was just a huge mistake, because you can definitely leave a little bit of overhang here and the wind's not going to get a hold of it as long as you have it secured at your highest joint inside, your highest ridge, I should say, inside. So the good news here is I can fix this mistake. I double overlapped here, so I'm going to be able to pull this panel off. I'll have to be careful with my screw holes to not leave any empty. I may have to use some silicone in some places. I'll be able to push this out. So I'll be able to correct this mistake, and you can see that I got lucky just by the where the sheets fell. And on this side, this is really how it should be. You got a nice overhang to protect your boards that are on your edge here of your eaves. This long term right here, if I would leave this eave board running down the side, would just get crushed by rain and everything else, and I'd be replacing it before long. All right, so the last mistake thing I would do differently, and I'm still investigating why this happened, but the screws that I used are the correct screws for my roofing, and I did the research of pre-drilling. I pre-drilled every single hole. They have washers. I don't think I put them in too tightly to create a divot, but if you can see here, everywhere there's a little X, I have a small leak. So probably 10% of my screws in here, I have a small leak. So I think it's because I either screwed them too tight or didn't screw them down enough. So I'm gonna go back here soon and do some experimenting with either tightening them up by hand, or I might have to find a bigger size screw. I think I pre-drilled them correctly, but this one's obviously defeating when you have this awesome structure and then you immediately have some small drip leaks. You want to get it corrected. So those were, I'd say, the top 5 mistakes, things I'd do differently. Hopefully that helps you guys as you're building out an awesome DIY greenhouse. And let me know in the comments if you have any similar mistakes or recommendations. Thanks, guys.